The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon candles filled the dining hall, yet all I could hear was the thudding in my chest. Grandpa Frank raised his glass, his silver hair glowing under the chandelier, and said casually, but with a weight that froze the air, "Anna, did you like the new house?" Forks clattered against plates. My breath locked in my throat. New house. I forced a smile, but the question sliced me open. Around the table, my mother shifted uncomfortably. My father cleared his throat, and my younger sister Lily smirked ever so slightly as if she had been waiting for this moment. Beside me, my husband Michael gripped my knee under the table, not with reassurance, but with a pressure that demanded an answer. "What house?" I whispered, but my voice cracked fragile against the buzz of the room. For years, I had dreamed of a home to call mine, away from the shadow of favoritism and comparison, away from the suffocating love my parents poured only onto Lily. Grandpa had always promised me, "One day, Anna, you'll have something no one can take." His words haunted me now, because everyone else seemed to know about this house, everyone but me. Michael leaned closer, his cologne sharp, his tone colder than the December wind outside. "You didn't tell me about it," he murmured, his voice a knife pressed against my ribs. My fork slipped from my hand. The clink rang louder than any carol. Lily giggled softly, pretending to sip her wine, but her eyes glowed with triumph. I saw in her gaze something cruel, almost mocking. Mom forced a laugh. "It's just a detail, Anna. Don't make it dramatic. Just a detail, a house. A gift my grandfather's legacy dismissed as if it were nothing." My throat burned. My father muttered, "Let's not ruin dinner," but his voice betrayed guilt. Michael's grip on my knee tightened, nails digging through fabric. He wanted confirmation. He wanted control. I stared at Grandpa Frank, searching for rescue, but he only looked at me with the tired eyes of someone who thought I had already known. My world tilted. Was I the last to know about my own inheritance? The betrayal tasted bitter, more bitter than the cranberry sauce on my plate. I forced myself to swallow hard, blinking back tears. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said firmly, but the tremor in my voice betrayed me. A silence fell heavier than the snow piling against the windows. Michael finally released my knee, but his hand curled into a fist on the tablecloth. His eyes narrowed, calculating. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a secret carefully built around me, and the people I trusted most, my husband, my family, were the architects. The Christmas lights twinkled above, cheerful and bright, but I felt as though I had been dragged into the dark. I had walked into dinner expecting warmth, yet found myself surrounded by conspirators. I froze, not because of the house, but because of the realization my husband and my own blood had been keeping something from me, and the weight of their silence screamed louder than words. In that instant, I understood the dinner table was no longer a place of family. It was the battlefield where betrayal had been served as the main course. I grew up in a house where laughter always seemed to curve toward my sister Lily, never toward me. From the day she was born, she became the bright star in my parents' universe while I was left circling in her shadow. At birthdays, she got the bigger cake, the shinier gifts. When school report cards arrived, my straight A's were brushed aside with a nod, while her average grades drew applause simply because she had a good heart. I learned early to swallow disappointment, to pretend indifference, but deep down, each small dismissal cut like paper across skin, too small for anyone else to notice, yet painful all the same. Mom often said, "Lily just needs more attention, Anna. You're stronger, you'll manage." As if strength was something I had been born with and Lily's fragility was a crown she wore. Dad, quiet and distracted, rarely intervened. The message was clear. My worth was endurance, hers was charm. If Lily cried, the world bent to her needs. If I cried, I was told to grow up. The only person who saw me without conditions was Grandpa Frank. He lived just outside town in a brick house that smelled of pine and tobacco. When I was small, I would trail after him as he worked in his garden, my shoes sinking into soft earth while he explained how roots held trees upright. "People are like that too, Anna," he once said, brushing dirt from his palms. "Without roots, without dignity, they fall at the first wind." He never promised me riches. He promised me resilience. It was Grandpa who came to school plays when my parents skipped. It was Grandpa who clapped the loudest when I won the science fair, even though Lily had quit halfway through her project. He always slipped me little notes in his steady handwriting. "Proud of you, keep going. One day, you'll have a place all your own." Those scraps of paper became my secret armor tucked into diaries hidden between textbooks. They reminded me that I wasn't invisible, not to him. As I grew older, the distance between me and my parents widened. At family dinners, conversations revolved around Lily's latest crush, Lily's outfits, Lily's endless stream of almost achievements. When I tried to talk about my internship or the scholarship I had earned, the room grew awkward as if my success was impolite. Michael, when he first joined our family gatherings, noticed. He would squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "I see you." Back then, I thought it was love. I didn't realize it was calculation. Lily thrived on being adored, and my parents fed that hunger. She learned early that she could manipulate them with tears, with a sweet smile. I, on the other hand, learned to build walls. But even walls crack when the people you long to trust chip away at them year after year. Grandpa sensed it. One Christmas long before this one, he took me aside into his study where the smell of old books hung heavy. He put his hand on my shoulder, his gaze firm. "Anna, remember, this fairness may never come from your parents, but I'll make sure you have something they can't twist or take away, a foundation of your own." I nodded, not fully understanding. Now his words echoed louder than ever. That legacy, the house he hinted at, the security he wanted for me, was supposed to be the shield against the favoritism that had defined my life. Yet here I was, years later, discovering that the very people who once dismissed me had conspired with the man I trusted most to bury that promise. It wasn't just about a property. It was about years of silence, neglect, and betrayal crystallizing into one brutal truth: I was never meant to be part of their version of family. When I met Michael, I thought I had finally escaped the suffocating favoritism of my childhood. He was everything my family wasn't attentive. Charming, quick to tell me I was beautiful when I had grown used to being overlooked. We met at a gallery opening where he stood beside his canvas explaining violent strokes of crimson and gray, as if he were translating storms into paint. I was 24, working late nights as a junior copywriter, tired of being invisible. His eyes locked on me like I was the only one in the room, and for the first time I felt chosen. Our courtship was fast. He sent me flowers I could barely afford to keep alive in my tiny apartment, took me to hole-in-the-wall cafes that felt like secret kingdoms. When he proposed, I said yes before I had time to ask myself whether love should be so quick, so consuming. At the wedding, under string lights in a rented hall, Grandpa Frank's smile warmed me, but my parents sat stiff as though they were tolerating rather than celebrating. Lily wore a shimmering dress that caught every gaze, and when Michael danced with her, I dismissed the way her hand lingered too long on his shoulder. It was just Lily being Lily, I told myself. The first year of marriage was sweet chaos. We ate ramen at midnight, shared an old mattress on the floor, dreamed aloud of better days. I carried the weight of bills, rent, and groceries while Michael chased art commissions that never materialized. "You're my muse," he would say, sketching me by the dim glow of our kitchen lamp. I wanted to believe it. Love made endurance feel noble. But cracks appeared early. He spent hours away claiming to meet patrons or fellow artists, yet he returned smelling faintly of perfume I didn't own. Receipts from upscale restaurants surfaced in his pockets, though he swore friends had covered the bills. When I asked why his phone was always face down, he grew defensive. "Why don't you trust me? You sound just like your parents." That comparison stung because I had married him to escape exactly that kind of accusation. Michael's charm never failed in public. At family dinners, he made my father laugh in ways I never could. Listened intently to my mother's stories, even praised Lily's mediocre achievements as if they were masterpieces. They adored him. Sometimes I caught Lily's gaze flickering toward him, something smug in her smile, but I pushed the thought aside. She loved stealing attention. It didn't mean anything, or so I convinced myself. The truth was, I needed Michael to be different. I needed someone to stand beside me when the scales of affection had always tilted toward Lily. So when he withdrew, when he spent nights away networking, I told myself it was for our future. When I worked double shifts while he bought expensive paints, I reminded myself that every marriage required sacrifice. I was willing to give until I broke, as long as it meant we were building something together. Grandpa Frank once warned me during a quiet walk in his garden, "Anna, be careful with men who admire your strength too much. Sometimes they only see what they can take, not what they can give." I laughed, then dismissing it as an old man's caution. Now I see it was prophecy. What I mistook for partnership was control wrapped in romance. Michael's late nights, his calculated charm toward my family, even his patience with Lily, it all formed a pattern I ignored. He wasn't just weaving himself into my life, he was weaving himself into theirs. I thought I had chosen a man who saw me. Instead, I had handed my future to someone already plotting where to place the knife. The clatter of cutlery had faded, and the once warm glow of Christmas lights now felt like interrogation lamps aimed at me. Grandpa's question still echoed in my head. "Did you like the new house?" as though every syllable had been a hammer pounding against my chest. I turned to Michael, hoping for reassurance, but his expression was sharp, expectant, almost hungry. His fingers drummed against the tablecloth, each tap louder than the last, until he finally leaned closer and hissed through clenched teeth. "So, when were you going to tell me?" I blinked, confused. "Tell you what, the house." "Anna," he said, his voice low, but laced with venom. "Don't play dumb. Everyone here knows." His eyes flicked toward my parents and then to Lily, who swirled her wine glass with a smirk she didn't bother to hide. The room tilted, the festive hum draining into silence. My mother sighed dramatically. "Anna, it's not such a big deal. We thought it would be best if Lily managed the paperwork. She's better with these things." My breath caught. "Paperwork? What paperwork, Grandpa?" I turned toward him, but before I could finish, my father cut me off. "Don't ruin Christmas." He barked, his voice carrying the same authority he'd used to silence me since childhood. "The house is still in the family. That's what matters. Still in the family." The words stung more than the winter wind slapping against the frosted windows. What about me? Wasn't I family? My pulse thundered in my ears. Michael's hand clamped down on mine, not gently but with force. "If you've been keeping secrets from me," he said, his smile thin and brittle, "we're going to have a serious problem." His grip tightened until my knuckles whitened. I tried to pull away, but he held fast, eyes burning with a mixture of anger and calculation. Lily laughed softly, a cruel melody. "Come on, Anna, you're overreacting. It's just a house." Just a house. To her, maybe. To me, it was the one promise Grandpa had made, that I'd finally have something secure, something mine. I could feel my throat tightening, but before I could speak, Michael pushed back his chair with a screech, the legs scraping against the wooden floor. Everyone flinched. "You see," he said, pointing at me as though I were a liar caught red-handed. She didn't even deny it. She knew, and she hid it. "I didn't know." My voice cracked, trembling with equal parts fury and fear. "I never heard a word about a house." "Grandpa, please." But Grandpa Frank sat in stunned silence, his face pale. His lips pressed into a thin line. It was as though he had realized too late the trap that had been laid, one he hadn't intended. Michael turned to my parents. "If the house is under Anna's name, then as her husband, I have a right to it too. Isn't that fair?" My father nodded quickly, avoiding my gaze. "Of course. What's hers is yours. That's marriage." The betrayal struck me harder than the crash of 1,000 glasses. My own father aligning himself with my husband, the man who had just threatened me at the dinner table. I felt the room closing in the air, heavy with conspiracy. I pushed back from the table, my chair rattling. "This is insane," I whispered, my voice shaking. "How long have you all known?" My mother looked down at her plate. Lily sipped her wine. Michael's eyes gleamed with triumph, as if my confusion was his victory. At that moment, I understood something I had never dared to believe. I was alone at that table. Alone among my parents, my sister, and the man I thought was my partner. They were no longer my family. They were co-conspirators bound by greed, hiding behind the tinsel and carols of Christmas night. And Michael, my husband, the man I had once trusted with my entire heart, was no longer my protector. He was their weapon. Grandpa's fork clinked against his plate, the sound sharp enough to slice through the tension. He pushed back his chair slowly, the leather creaking under his weight, and rose to his feet. His face, usually so warm at these gatherings, was clouded with regret. The room fell silent. Even Lily lowered her glass, her smirk faltering. Enough, Grandpa said, his voice steady though laced with weariness. He set his napkin on the table, smoothing it with deliberate care as though buying time. Then he turned to me, his eyes locking onto mine, and in them I saw both sorrow and resolve. Anna, there's something you need to know, something I should have told you long ago. My stomach knotted. The air thickened, every second stretching unbearably. Michael leaned forward, his eyes gleaming like a predator about to pounce. Go on, he urged. Grandpa drew a slow breath. The house, the one I asked about it, was never meant to be a surprise like this. Years ago, when your father and I were still speaking, I made a choice. I saw the way things were in this family. I saw the favoritism, the way you were treated as though you were an afterthought. And I swore to myself that you would not leave this world with nothing. Mom shifted uncomfortably, her lips pressing into a thin line. My father's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to Michael, then away. I put the deed in your name when you were 18, Grandpa continued, his voice heavy. Quietly. I wanted you to have roots of your own, a foundation no one could twist or take. But your parents... His voice broke for a moment. He steadied himself. Your parents intervened. They convinced me you weren't ready, that Lily should handle it on your behalf. Against my better judgment, I let them. The room spun. Wait, I whispered. You mean this was mine all along? Yes, Grandpa said simply. It was always yours. But the paperwork, the signatures, they manipulated it. By the time I realized the transfer had been made, and Michael, he turned his eyes narrowing on my husband. I never trusted you. I warned Anna, but she wouldn't hear it. Still, I never thought you would stoop to this. Michael's lips curved into a tight smile. If the deed was changed, then legally it's not hers, is it? That's on you, old man. Grandpa's hand slammed against the table, rattling glasses. Don't you dare! You think you've won because of a few signatures. Paper can be rewritten. Lies can be undone. But what you've done to her, what all of you have done, cannot be excused. My chest tightened. Betrayal layered itself like bricks, each revelation heavier than the last. My parents had stolen what was promised to me. My husband had stood ready to exploit it, and all the while I had been living under the illusion of love and loyalty. Lily finally spoke, her tone dripping with false innocence. Anna, don't be so dramatic. You never would have managed a property like that anyway. Michael and I... She stopped abruptly, eyes widening, realizing too late the slip she had made. My pulse thundered. Michael and you. Silence. Her cheeks flushed crimson, but her eyes flickered with defiance. Michael's jaw clenched, but he didn't deny it. The pieces slammed together in my mind, the lingering touches, the smug smiles, the way she defended him even when his actions made no sense. Grandpa closed his eyes, his face etched with grief. This family, he muttered, rotten at its core, and I allowed it to fester. He turned to me again. Anna, you must fight this. Not just for the house, not just for the money for yourself, for your dignity. They will not stop until you are erased. Promise me you won't let them win. Tears blurred my vision, but anger burned hotter than despair. For years, I had swallowed their cruelty, believing endurance was enough. But endurance hadn't protected me. It had only made me a target. Grandpa's truth was both a wound and a weapon. I wasn't powerless. I had been betrayed, but I wasn't finished. I looked around the table at my parents' downcast faces, at Lily's flushed cheeks, at Michael's smug grin, and I felt the weight of a choice pressing down on me. Stay silent and let them devour what little I had left, or rise and fight for the legacy Grandpa had tried to protect. For the first time in my life, I chose to fight. Michael's silence after Grandpa's revelation was louder than any denial. He leaned back in his chair, lips curling into that practiced smirk I once mistook for charm, and glanced at Lily. The way her eyes darted toward him and then quickly away told me more than words ever could. Something had been simmering beneath the surface for months, maybe years. That night, long after the guests left and the dishes sat cold in the sink, I overheard them. I had stepped out onto the porch to breathe the icy December air, my chest still heavy with Grandpa's words. Voices drifted from the kitchen window, Michael's low and urgent, Lily's high and sharp with laughter. She doesn't suspect a thing, Lily whispered. She will? Michael replied. Frank's already stirring the pot. We need to move fast before Anna realizes how deep this goes. My stomach clenched. I pressed myself against the brick wall, straining to catch every word. We'll get the deed locked down, Lily said. Dad's already agreed to sign whatever papers we put in front of him. Mom will back us if she thinks it keeps the family out of scandal. And when it's done, Michael's laugh was cold. When it's done, Anna will have nothing, just like she's always had nothing. The clink of glasses followed a toast to my erasure. I stumbled back inside, my pulse racing. Every detail I'd ignored, the way Lily touched his arm too easily, the perfume that lingered on his clothes, the knowing looks at family dinners suddenly snapped into place. It wasn't just greed, it was collusion. My sister, my husband, united not only in theft, but in something far more intimate. The following weeks confirmed it. Michael came home later claiming late-night gallery meetings. Lily's car was often spotted parked on our street. I asked him directly, once my voice trembling with fear disguised as anger. Are you seeing her? He froze, then laughed. You're paranoid. She's your sister. What kind of man do you think I am? The kind who would declare me dead, I thought bitterly. But suspicion hardened into certainty when I found Lily's earring in our bedroom drawer, a delicate pearl stud I'd seen her wear on Christmas night. My hands shook as I held it, the final proof of betrayal staring up at me in cold gleam. By then, the collusion had gone beyond whispers. They wanted the house. They wanted the inheritance. And I was the obstacle they needed to erase legally, emotionally, and perhaps even physically. For years, I had swallowed favoritism, endured invisibility. Now I was staring at something darker, my own blood and my own husband conspiring together. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was surgical, designed to cut me out of every future I thought I had. I knew that suspicion wasn't enough. If I wanted to stand against Michael and Lily, I needed proof, documents, records, evidence that couldn't be twisted into paranoia. Grandpa's words echoed in my head. Paper can be rewritten. Lies can be undone. That became my mission. The first ally I turned to was Grandpa's attorney, Mr. Harris, a man with silver hair and a reputation for being unshakable in court. I visited his office, clutching the pearl earring I had found like it was a talisman. He listened carefully, his eyes narrowing as I recounted the overheard conversation, the suspicious paperwork, the way my parents seemed complicit. You're not crazy, Anna, he said firmly. I've seen families tear themselves apart over less. We'll start with the deed records at the county clerk's office. If they tampered with it, there'll be a trail. The following week, Harris and I combed through files. Buried in a stack of property transfers was the evidence, my signature only, it wasn't mine. The slant was wrong, the loops unnatural. A forgery. My stomach churned as I stared at the page. They hadn't just betrayed me, they had stolen my identity on paper to erase me in real life. Next came the bank accounts. With Harris's help, I subpoenaed statements. Thousands had been siphoned from the joint savings account into an LLC registered under Lily's name, but the listed business address was Michael's studio. Every withdrawal lined up with the luxury dinners, the hotels, the investments he claimed were for his art. The paper trail was undeniable. They were funneling money together. Still, I needed someone in my corner who could act outside legal channels. That's when I called Melanie, my oldest friend from college, the one person I had kept at a distance out of shame for marrying a man like Michael. She showed up at my apartment without hesitation, armed with a camera and her trademark stubbornness. You should have called me sooner, she scolded, wrapping me in a hug that nearly undid me. But fine, let's burn them down. Melanie became my shadow investigator. She trailed Lily's car, snapping photos of her slipping into Michael's studio late at night. She caught them at a downtown cafe, their hands intertwined across the table. Each shot was time-stamped, each one a nail in the coffin of their lies. Piece by piece, I built a fortress of evidence, forged signatures, suspicious transfers, photographs that spoke louder than any denial. Every page, every image was a reminder that I wasn't crazy, I wasn't paranoid, I was being hunted from within my own family. At night, when exhaustion threatened to crush me, Grandpa's words carried me. Promise me, you won't let them win. With Harris's legal acumen and Melanie's fearless loyalty, I felt the first flickers of hope, the kind of hope that steels itself into resolve. This wasn't just about saving a house, it was about saving myself. Thanksgiving arrived colder than I remembered, though maybe it was just the frost settling inside me. The estate's dining hall was dressed in autumn hues, burnt orange napkins, golden leaves scattered across the table runner candles flickering against crystal glasses. But the warmth of the scene couldn't hide the chill that gripped me as I walked in. Michael and Lily sat close together, too close their shoulders brushing as they leaned over a shared joke. My parents occupied the head of the table as though nothing was amiss, as though this holiday was just another ritual to keep up appearances. Grandpa was quiet, his sharp eyes scanning the room, waiting. I took my seat folder in hand, heart pounding. Inside were the deeds bank statements and photographs, weeks of proof. Melanie had helped me prepare everything, her voice echoing in my head. Don't just confront them, expose them. Dinner began with brittle politeness. Turkey carved plates past hollow chatter about weather and work. But beneath it all, the tension throbbed. Every glance between Michael and Lily, every dismissive remark from my father, every forced smile from my mother, it all screamed of complicity. Finally, Grandpa set down his fork with deliberate force. Before we thank the Lord for this meal, he said, his voice carrying down the table, there's unfinished business. Anna, the floor is yours. All eyes turned to me. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. I know about the deed, about the forged signature, about the money siphoned into Lily's company. I pulled the first document from the folder, sliding it across the polished wood toward my father. And I know about you two. My eyes locked on Michael and Lily. The room erupted. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My father's face reddened, his eyes narrowing into slits. Lily scoffed, but her voice wavered. She's lying. Michael leaned back, arms crossed, smirking as though the whole affair were beneath him. Paranoia, Anna. That's all this is. You've been reading too many detective novels. Really? I said, my voice steady now. I slid out the photos Melanie had taken Lily slipping into Michael's studio at midnight, their hands entwined at the cafe, the pearl earring glinting in the frame. Explain this. Lily's face drained of color. Michael's jaw twitched, though his smile held. My father slammed his hand on the table. Enough. This is family. We don't air our laundry like this. But Grandpa's voice cut through sharp as a blade. It's not laundry. It's theft and betrayal. He turned to my parents. You enabled this. You signed papers you knew weren't hers. You watched as they planned to erase your daughter. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Michael stood, his voice rising, anger breaking through his calm veneer. You want to make me the villain, fine. But you're nothing without me, Anna. You always needed someone stronger to carry you. Without me, you'd be invisible. I rose slowly, cane steady in my grip, my folder still in hand. My voice didn't shake. Invisible, no. Not anymore. Because this time the truth is on paper, and the law doesn't bow to your arrogance. Phones had already appeared, distant relatives recording whispers spreading like wildfire. The facade of family unity crumbled before everyone's eyes. Lily shrank in her seat. My parents sat in stunned silence, and Michael's smirk finally cracked. Grandpa lifted his glass, his eyes meeting mine. To Anna, he said firmly, the one who finally stood. The clink of crystal echoed like a verdict. The courtroom was nothing like the warm chaos of family dinners. It was cold, orderly, merciless, exactly what I needed. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the air thick with the faint scent of polished wood and old carpet. I sat beside Harris, my attorney Melanie just behind me, her presence a steady pulse of courage. Across the aisle, Michael adjusted his suit jacket with theatrical ease, while Lily avoided my gaze, her lips pressed thin. My parents sat stiffly behind them, united in silence. The judge entered, a sharp-eyed woman with silver hair pulled back in a bun. Her gavel struck once, slicing through the tension. This court will come to order. Harris rose first. He spoke with calm precision, laying out the case, the forged signature on the deed, the funneling of funds into Lily's LLC, the photographs of Michael and Lily together, the witness statements from Melanie and even Grandpa. Each piece of evidence stacked neatly on the record, forming a wall too high for excuses to climb. Michael's lawyer countered with smooth deflections. My client merely acted to protect his wife's interests during her prolonged incapacity. The family agreed these were joint assets. Any suggestion of misconduct is fueled by bitterness, not fact. Joint assets, Harris shot back. Explain why 47,000's left their account in a single month spent on boutique hotels and jewelry shops, all traced to Mr. Carter's transactions. Explain why Mrs. Carter's name was forged on property documents. Explain why Mrs. Carter's own sister appeared on financial filings as beneficiary of a house that by legal record was hers alone. The judge's gaze hardened. She tapped her pen against the bench. Answer the questions, counsel. Michael leaned forward, his smirk faint but stubborn. She's exaggerating. She never cared about the house until now. Lily and I were handling it for her, that's all. I stood then, cane steady in my hand, my voice carrying through the room. Handling it, you erased me. You told people I was dead. You walked into my hospital room with her on your arm and called her your wife. Does that sound like handling my affairs? Gasps rippled through the gallery. Lily's face blanched. The judge raised a brow. Is that true, Mr. Carter? Michael's lawyer stammered, but Harris cut in smoothly. Your Honor, we submit hospital visitor logs confirming Mr. Carter's single visit accompanied by Ms. Carter's sister, whom he introduced as his wife. We also have testimony from medical staff who overheard the exchange. The judge reviewed the documents, lips tightening. Then she turned to Lily. Ms. Carter, did you knowingly conspire with your brother-in-law to falsify documents and siphon funds? Lily's composure cracked. She stuttered, her eyes darting to Michael, then to my parents. I only signed what Dad told me to. I didn't know. Her voice faltered thin as paper. My father shifted uncomfortably. My mother looked down at her lap. The judge's voice sharpened. Ignorance is no defense when signatures are forged and money is stolen. She paused, her gaze sweeping the courtroom. This court finds substantial evidence of financial misconduct, fraud, and attempted coercion. The gavel struck once, twice. The property deed will be restored to Anna Carter as sole owner. Mr. Carter is barred from all financial and medical decisions concerning his wife. Charges of fraud and forgery will proceed to criminal court. Michael surged to his feet, his face twisted with rage. You can't do this. I made her. She's nothing without me. I rose too, my cane steady, my voice calm but cutting. No, Michael. I was nothing because of you. Today I stand without you and stronger for it. The bailiff stepped forward, pressing a firm hand to Michael's shoulder, guiding him back down. Cameras flashed as reporters scribbled notes. My husband, once so smug, now looked small-cornered, his empire of lies collapsing in the light of truth. As the gavel struck finality into the air, I exhaled, the weight of months lifting off my chest. Justice had spoken, and for the first time it was on my side. Winter thawed slowly that year, but inside me the ice cracked fast. After the trial, after the gavel struck, silence no longer felt like a weapon. It felt like space, room to breathe, room to build. I moved into the estate Grandpa had left me, not as a hiding place, but as a home reclaimed. The halls that once echoed with suspicion now carried softer sounds. Melanie's laughter drifting from the kitchen, the scratch of Vanessa's pen as she sketched ideas for the foundation we had dreamed up together, the clatter of children's feet when Nurse Sarah brought her kids to visit. The scars across my ribs ached in the cold, but I stopped hiding them. They were proof I had survived the crash, the betrayal, the erasure. Each mark was a story written in flesh. You were broken, but you rose. Slowly, Vanessa and I wove the fragile threads of mother and daughter into something sturdier. At first, we sat across the table, cautious, speaking in fragments. Do you regret it? She asked once, staring into her mug. Every day, I admitted. But finding you again? Never. Her eyes shimmered, and for the first time, she didn't pull away when I reached across the table. That single gesture carried more weight than any courtroom verdict. Together, we turned inheritance into impact. The foundation, named Wallace House after Uncle James, opened its doors to women who had walked paths like mine, betrayed, erased, discarded. They arrived timid, clutching small bags, their eyes darting. But within weeks, their laughter filled the halls. Workshops, art programs, counseling, all born from pain, repurposed into power. On Thanksgiving, I filled the long dining table not with relatives bound by blood, but with those who had proven themselves by choice. Melanie carved the turkey Sarah's kids placed handmade cards at each plate, and Vanessa sat beside me smiling without hesitation. The candles glowed not over secrets, but over a family rebuilt. When the plates were cleared and the hall fell quiet, Vanessa lingered by the window, moonlight softening her features. Do you ever wonder? she whispered what life would be if the crash never happened. I thought for a long time. I think I would have kept shrinking, I said, until there was nothing left of me. The crash broke my body, but it saved my life. She nodded slowly, her hand slipping into mine. Then, maybe it wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. Her words settled in me like truth, because survival isn't just about what you endure, it's about what you build afterward. Months later, when reporters asked me what legacy meant, I answered simply, legacy isn't money in bank accounts. It's what you build in the lives of others. It's who still sits at your table when everything else falls away. And as I watched Vanessa laugh in the garden sunlight in her hair, I knew I had chosen the right family, the right fight, the right life. I wasn't just Olivia Carter, the woman betrayed. I was Olivia Carter, survivor, mother builder of something unshakable.